Have you ever wondered what scenes might unfold at the depths of a 12,000-meter pit? First, let me play you a real sound. Doesn't it sound like the agonizing cries of many people? This pit was a massive project initiated by the Soviet Union in the 1970s to showcase its national strength to the United States. It aimed to explore uncharted territories, but when they drilled to a depth of 12,000 meters, the project was suddenly halted. All the researchers fled in panic. What exactly happened? Officially, it was claimed that the project was stopped due to insufficient funding. But years later, this terrifying sound was revealed, and the horrifying events in the drill hole came to light. This incident was adapted into a horror film. On this day, Xiaomei was elegantly playing the piano, spending Christmas with her family, when she received a special mission. She is a biological disease expert, and the country selected her to complete this task. Special forces arrived in a military helicopter, flying through layers of snowy mountains, and brought her to a secret base on the Kola Peninsula. Before the helicopter even landed, through the window she saw a researcher holding a grenade walking towards them. The special forces, seeing the dangerous individual approaching, fired several shots at him. Even after being shot multiple times, the researcher still pulled the pin on the grenade. Oh my god, what kind of madness is this? Xiaomei was terrified by such a warm welcome, but with the escort of the special forces, she safely entered the base. The base director informed Xiaomei that a mysterious explosion had occurred in the base, after which many people contracted a strange illness. They all became mentally unstable and then suddenly died. Hearing this, doesn't it remind you of the COVID-19 pandemic? The person who just self-destructed with a grenade was one of them. Now the urgent task is to investigate the source of this strange illness. Xiaomei and the special forces, led by the director, entered a special elevator. What's so special about this elevator? It requires the director's access card for authentication. If authentication fails 3 times, the elevator will free fall. Xiaomei felt nervous just hearing this. She watched as the director inserted his access card and entered the correct password, and the elevator started successfully. Take a deep breath. But as the elevator descended rapidly, the air pressure suddenly increased. Fortunately, the director was experienced and quickly put on a mask. However, he was quite careless as he didn't inform everyone about the precautions, causing everyone to pass out due to the intense air pressure. Finally, the elevator stopped at the living area at 6,000 meters. Is the director a mole sent by the enemy? He disregarded everyone's safety and ran off on his own. When Xiaomei woke up, where could she find her guide? She stepped out of the elevator and found the large living area completely deserted. After investigating, Xiaomei discovered that the strange illness was caused by bacteria. The high temperatures deep underground provided a breeding ground for the bacteria. This deadly bacteria would spread once it reached the surface. To make matters worse, there was still no way to combat this virus. The director had fled, and without the access card they couldn't operate the elevator. There was only one narrow passage left, where the temperature reached 240 degrees Celsius. It would take at least 6 hours to reach the deepest part of the facility. They had no choice. They had to summon the fearless spirit of the Communist Party. They put on protective suits and were about to set off when suddenly, an eerie sound came from deep within the passage. Moments later, a mysterious woman limped out of the passage, slowly approaching them. The woman's face was twisted in agony. She raised her hand and suddenly, with a sickening crack, her hand bent unnaturally. My God! Before anyone could react, her other fingers began to bend and deform one after another. Was she mutating? The medical team quickly examined her. When they removed her clothes, they found her back had already rotted, and even stranger, something resembling mushrooms was growing there. It was so disgusting I almost vomited. Xiaomei bravely used forceps to take a sample. Truly a disease expert. Her mental strength was impressive. Under the microscope, the cells looked like a kaleidoscope from our childhood, constantly changing and expanding. It was bizarre. The world is full of wonders. Before Xiaomei could figure out what was happening, a loud explosion startled her. She felt a deep unease, as this was something she had never witnessed in her life. The person she had just been talking to was now a pile of mangled flesh on the ground. Even more horrifying, the remains were still twitching as if they retained some consciousness. This was truly grotesque. Xiaomei quickly grabbed a cloth to cover her mouth and nose, summoning the courage to collect a sample. This woman was incredibly brave. Look at the team leader beside her. His legs had gone weak at the sight of the grotesque scene. Xiaomei instinctively found a mask and put it on. As a biologist, she knew full well that the spray contained deadly viral spores. Suddenly, a noise came from behind them. The woman they had seen earlier, who had been acting strangely, had now truly mutated. Terrifying bone spikes erupted from her body as she roared and charged toward Xiaomei. Xiaomei quickly dodged, spotted a flamethrower nearby, and grabbed it to spray at the mutated creature. The flamethrower worked well, instantly neutralizing the virus in the air. Seizing the opportunity, they fled, narrowly escaping disaster. The team leader wasn't so lucky. He had been sprayed earlier and now his face mask was showing signs of change. His expression was one of agony. The virus was highly contagious, even more terrifying than COVID-19. Xiaomei knew she had to obtain the original virus sample to find a solution. So, despite the life-threatening danger, they pressed on toward the deepest part of the facility. The team leader, still somewhat lucid, decided to split into two groups and sent a reconnaissance team into the passage. Not long after, the leader heard screams and shouted a warning, "Don't come in," but Xiaomei was determined to find the source of the virus. When they opened the door, they saw several survivors with dazed expressions. Upon closer inspection, the soldier who had issued the warning was dragging his mangled body toward them. He glanced back, then took a knife and ended his own life. What could be so terrifying that even a seasoned Special Forces soldier would choose death over facing it? Just then something strange appeared. Behind the heavy iron door, things had taken a turn for the worse. There was no time to think. The technician managed to restart the elevator, and they headed down to the 12,000-meter depth. The elevator descended rapidly, sparks flying as the temperature around them grew unbearably hot. Finally, the elevator stopped. They had reached the deepest part of the Kola Superdeep Borehole. The temperature here was extreme. Xiaomei spotted the unreliable director lying not far away, the access card still in his hand. After a moment of internal struggle, she rushed over and successfully retrieved the card, returning to the group. The men began to argue, almost coming to blows. Just then, a monstrous creature of indescribable appearance emerged. Wow, this is intense. A bucket of ice water poured over her, sending a chilling sensation from head to toe. Xiaomei knew that this parasite feared the cold and could only survive in warm-blooded hosts. With the external temperature reaching 200 degrees Celsius, Xiaomei was radiating heat, turning herself into a bright red figure. She crouched in a corner, secretly watching as a fleshy ball rolled past her. It was a mutated human transformed into a grotesque meatball, rolling and emitting eerie, inhuman sounds. Suddenly, a loud rumbling noise echoed through the facility. The base's self-destruct sequence had been activated. Behind them, the massive creature noticed them and began to chase. Just as it was about to grab Xiaomei, the elevator finally started, saving her at the last moment. Xiaomei looked down and saw the infected team leader, now completely unrecognizable, his body deformed and oozing toxic fluids. She realized the elevator must also be contaminated. If they left like this, everyone on the surface would turn into monsters. Xiaomei deliberately entered the wrong password, but Xiuli Gong saw through her plan. The two began to struggle, and just as Xiaomei was about to collapse from exhaustion, the team leader, using his last bit of consciousness, took down Xiuli Gong. By this point, Xiaomei's skin was glowing a dark red. She had been infected. She lost consciousness and woke up later to find that the surface team had brought her out. In her hand, she secretly held a detonator. This was likely why the researcher at the beginning had chosen to self-destruct. With gritted teeth, Xiaomei pulled the hidden wire. The secrets of the Kola Superdeep Borehole were buried 12,000 meters underground, never to be uncovered. Xiaomei's self-sacrificial spirit was truly admirable. She gave up her own life to save countless others. Just like during the pandemic, many rushed to the front lines to protect our homes. We salute you. See you next time.